Or the usual, there's lots of names that's been given, and the one that comes up again and again is the island of Bali. And I'm thinking, but there's no barley grown here. And no one can remember the last time barley ever grew there. I'm thinking, okay, maybe. I've taken it back as far as I can. And the earliest mention of it is actually in an Irish text, and they call it Inish Druinish, which is the island of the Druids. And I'm going, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because all throughout the tradition of written tradition of Iona, you have a connection with Druids, a Druidical college, or an ecclesiastical college, and you also have a connection with people who behave just like the Druids that show up there in 36 AD, and they came all the way from the Middle East. They were the Chaldee,
or
the
yes.
Chaldee. So they essentially are the same variant of the Druids. So that's the most the name I'm really comfortable with, because the oldest thing you can find usually tends to be the most sanest and the most rational. Everything else becomes an adaptive name over time because the place changes its use over time, the name changes. So that's the one that I thought was the most relevant. And it also answers the question, why was 60 kings buried there, including Macbeth, and John Smith, the former Labour leader.
Really?
Someone knew something was going on there that was very important. And these were not just your haphazard kings and queens. These are people who kind of knew that things were a little bit different here.
Well, you left something kind of hanging in there. I remember when I was watching the documentary, you said something like, the Cultic arrived 37 AD, same time as the scenes were escaping out of the Middle East.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The scenes suddenly disappear, and you have the same people dressed in white, practicing the same spiritual tradition, arriving on Iona. And Cultic actually is a Middle Eastern name. It means the worshippers of God, or something close to that. There's a bit of a discussion going on about the true meaning of Cultic. And it's also the strangers that came from afar. That's not a variant of the name. That's almost like an Armenian variant of the name. The strangers that came from afar. And that makes a lot of sense too. They were following God that came from afar. And the Essenes and the Cultic, when you research them, they are one and the same group of people. It would have taken close to 2 or 3 years to come all the way from the Middle East by various routes, and then establish themselves in a place that was already known as a haven of spirituality and also of openness to everybody. Yeah, I mean, the women were welcome there for one thing. So it made a lot of sense. And I don't know if you're going to ask us the next question about Aldred's Chapel.
Yes, I was going to ask. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, and I thought, well, there's not much evidence left of the Cultic, because when the Catholic Church moved in fact, when you go to Iona, it's kind of funny watching people who are not in my group listening in on what I'm telling people, and they're looking for their brochures. There's nothing written about the Cultic. No, it's completely gone. Even the Druids are not mentioned. Even the Cistercians are not mentioned. It's a complete whitewash of history in Iona. And it's only happened recently, by the way. And so I was looking at Aldred's Chapel, and because everybody goes to the big abbey, and I'm going, yes, it's good, but it's not that good. This is the little chapel. This is the most important thing. And the moment you set foot in there, you're in a different level of reality. It's a feel of the place. It's like, wow, it's small, but my God, it's powerful. And it turns out it's one of the original Cultic buildings. It was like a main place where they did their initiation or their orations. And I figured, yeah, you could get that sense that you're in two worlds here. And I suspect also the door, it's been heavily rebuilt. It was used as a cowshed at one point. I suspect that the doorway today is actually on the wrong side. It should be on the east, not the west. And there is indications that, things have changed over time in order to align themselves with the reuse of the abbey grounds. But be that as it may, I figured, okay, let me do some archaeoastronomy on the building, just for fun. And so you've got a nice bead. It's not exactly aligned to the equinox. It's just slightly off. I'm thinking, okay, those 5 degrees. They would have been pretty good at doing what they do. What is it with these 5 degrees? It turns out that when you actually look at the sunrise on the spring equinox in 37 AD, you get Venus rising exactly offset by 5 degrees just before the sunrise. And that's the mark of the risen initiate. And the Chaldee were following the tradition of initiation, which was the resurrection of the dead. In other words, the risen initiate that goes into the other world spends 3 days there, comes back into the body, is declared risen from the dead. And would you believe it? When Columba shows up on Iona and starts kicking the Chaldee and the Druids and the women off the island, nice guy. His second in command, Audran, decides to look at the myths of the island, which is really fantastic. And he heard that there was this story that the chapel was evil. The chapel of the Chaldee was evil. That the stones went up as quickly as they went down, as though by evil intent. And he said, right, and the only way that we're going to stop this evil in this location is by someone burying themselves alive. Now, to his credit, he has himself buried alive, underground, a little tube for air. I don't know what it consumed, but they dug him up 3 days later, and he comes out, and the first words out of his mouth is, everything that we've been taught about hell is complete bollocks. That's the first word.
Yeah.
So it tells me that he actually had a spiritual experience.
An out-of-body experience. Yeah.
Because of the nature of the energy in that building. He suddenly realized, my God, we've been following the wrong tradition. What we've been taught is completely wrong. There is no hell. There is this wonderful paradise. And he came back to talk about it because he had that experience himself. So sometimes this is why I like listening to the people who rewrite history, because there's always someone in their midst who's a bit more open than everybody else. And you get to learn so much because you're able to synchronize the stories together. So thank you to Audran, who, I think kind of redeems the actions of Columba, who is a real bastard, actually. I don't even know why even women go there and sit there and bend down to him. It's like, he hated women. Why are you bending down to him? He hates you. I said, oh, he didn't. It's all fabrications. No, he actually wrote about that. And never mind. You can't judge people.
And there's another thing on Iona is the hill of the fairy people. There's the hill of angels.
Oh, the hill of angels was fascinating. I thought, I got to look into this one. It took about 5 trips to Iona to identify it. I can't find any maps that talks about it. There's a hill of the Druid, which may be the same thing, which has been misplaced. And I figured, okay, that's up in the hills. I better go up there. And I walked around the hills, and I wasn't getting that sort of tingle, that sort of feel that you get when you're somewhere special. And I thought, okay, I've got to do some more research. And I managed to finally get hold of a couple of maps from the 17th century. And sure enough, it's actually on there. They call it the Cairn Angel, the Hill of the Angels, and it's sitting right in this little wonderful oval shape. And I'm thinking, that looks very man-made. And it's right next to a farm, a cattle farm. And you walk right past it, one of the lanes, and you don't even pay attention to it because of all the erosion. The soil has obviously run down this little hillock. And it's covered something, but suddenly in a new light, now that I know what I'm looking at, I'm going, wait a minute, this is like a long barrow. It's like a giant's grave. You can see the flat front. Now that you know what you're looking for, you can see the flat front, you see the oval teardrop shape. And I stood at a point, I thought, yeah, this is it. This is more like it. And then I was just making a bead of alignments. It's kind of difficult. You're kind of within a 10-degree discrepancy because the mound has been so weathered because of all the rainfalls there. But I did make a couple of connections again to Orion as well. So there's that continuing association between the places of initiation and the belt stars of Orion, which again happens in every cosmology around the world. And that was a wonderful moment because, that is the reason why people go to Iona, is that little hillock there. Everything else is just peripheral stuff, apart from Odin's chapel. But it's kind of funny when you go on the tours that we go to places where there's nobody there. And people are wondering, well, why are we the only people here? Is it because they don't tell you about it in any of the brochures? That's why you paid all the money to come with me.
Good, excellent.